But talk to me about freedom. You made a post on July 4th, and you have a slightly different perspective of this because you spent a lot of your time fighting for freedoms, although I'm sure you don't want people all the time coming up and telling you that for maybe the reasons we just talked about. But you said this, and I thought it was interesting. You said perhaps freedom and independence are more about the rights and opinions of others than your own. You said perhaps true freedom is allowing those that boil your blood to voice their opinion without shouting them down. Perhaps if you think that our flag belongs more to you than it does to others, you are part of the problem. Then you finally said, perhaps regardless of how difficult it may be to see at times, we're so incredibly lucky and fortunate to call this country home. It will never be perfect, but that doesn't mean we should stop trying. Maybe you made that in reaction to some of the tumultuous events happening in the States and worldwide, but maybe talk about freedom and why you made that post and what you see as a veteran and also just as a human.
Well, I mean, I don't have a unique perspective just because I'm a veteran, and it's like it says in the post. I wore the flag on my uniform, and for many people in many of the countries that I was in, it was the first time they saw an American flag. So how I behaved is how they view America. But that doesn't mean the flag's mine, and that doesn't mean I own it any more than anybody else. Freedom, I often hear people talking about from a very myopic, self-centered perspective. I am free because I can say this. I can do that. And to me, it just makes more sense to flip that on its head. True freedom is not me being able to express my opinion. It's an environment where people, regardless if I agree with it or not, have the ability to speak in the way that they want to. And that doesn't mean that I have to agree with them. And you see it specifically right now in the US, this, I hate the term, but cancel culture. God forbid you say something that somebody else disagrees with. If they can gather a mob behind them, they'll try to shut you down. And that is the worst, economy of ideas that I've ever heard of. We should have an environment where ideas compete and the best ideas come to the surface and they win because they're the best idea, not because you have the most vocal mob behind you. And, I see people trying to define the flag based on their personal beliefs, or you see veterans who get very passionate about the flag because they have had friends draped under that flag and who have been buried under that flag. And the reality is, who cares? And I'm not saying that in a negative manner. What I'm saying is that doesn't give you any more ownership of the flag than it does the person who decides that they want to burn it. You look at Colin Kaepernick and him taking a knee before the national anthem. People ask me about this one all the time. To me, what is a true expression of freedom? And it is that man deciding to take a knee before the national anthem. And it doesn't mean I have to agree with what he's saying. It doesn't mean that I have to agree with the tact that he is taking. It means that if we truly live in a free society, he can do what he wants. And he should be allowed to do what he wants without being shouted down. If you have a better idea, bring that idea to the table, and let's have an economy of ideas, and the best ideas will net themselves out. It's very frustrating to me because I see people unwilling or unable to get out of their own way again. They only view things from their perspective. And to me, that is so incredibly myopic. And that's how we go backwards as a country as opposed to forward.
And is it worse than you've ever seen it now? Is it worse than in modern history now?
I can say it's the worst that I've seen it in my life. I don't know about anything beyond that time period. I'm not a history buff by any stretch of imagination, and I can only talk about what I've seen through my own eyes.
Do you think it's also a factor that we live mainly in a digital world now where things are depersonified and it's just easy to cancel and fight behind a screen or fight without a face in front of you? Do you think that's part of the problem or not necessarily?
I think the interconnectedness and the fact that it exists 24 hours a day is a beautiful thing, but there's, it's a double-edged sword, because then you can't escape it either. We have access to unfettered information, but it seems like people are just trying to find the information that supports their personal bias or belief. And it's just once the snowball starts, it can't be stopped. So it's amazing that we can connect with people all over the world, but it's also unbearable when that snowball goes the wrong way. So I think there's an aspect of that for sure. It's just unfettered, unlimited access to information. Then you got to take into account the ratio of how much of that information is positive versus negative. I suspect most people, if they had to do a mathematical graph, it'd be about 80% negative, if not more, and very little positive. And I think that informs your mental state and your actions and the way that you treat other people.